Hello, everybody, and welcome to Daily Coaching. Daily Coaching are currently hosting a number of discussions with current professionals and ex-professionals within the game, and talking all things about their experiences of being coached, and also their journeys from when they first started out within football, and bringing them up to their most recent or when they stopped playing. And today I'm delighted to announce that with us speaking on this matter and on this topic, we have ex-Birmingham, Aston Villa and Portland Timbers player Liam Ridgewell. And as part of that, like I said, Liam, first of all, thank you for joining us today. And secondly, if you can, just kind of take us way back to when you first started out within football, talking about how you kind of got into it, and what that first team looked like, and then taking us all the way up into where we are now, or where we were before.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, obviously. Delighted to be able to share my opinions and obviously my pathway. Started way back when I could pick a football up and just kick a ball around, which I think a lot of lads and fellas would talk about. My first team that I can sort of first remember was a team called Danson Juniors. That was started up in South London. And that's probably my first real remembrance of being coached, apart from my dad, really. Obviously, the old man had me outside and, used to stick me in a wheelie bin and said, say you can't do 50 headers before I even come out and play with you, or stick it in the top bin, or as we nicked the tyre and put that in the corner and said, put it in there 20 times before I come out, or 100 keep-ups before I even come out. So it gave me something to strive to. But first coach, probably outside my dad, I'm sure his name was Mick Dove. I'm sure that just suddenly came to me. We played for Danson Juniors, and I don't know how I got down there. I don't know how my dad found it or why we went down there. But obviously played with friends that I'm still friends with now. I think we were probably 6, 7 at the time. And all I remember from that coach was he just used to keep shouting, pass, 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 pass. Every time you got the ball, it was pass. And you'd not even touched the ball yet, and he'd shout, pass, 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 pass. And still now, that sticks in my mind, which is incredible. And I think anyone that asked me my first remembrance of football after my old man, it's pass, 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 pass. So a funny thing to recall, really, and the good old days, and enjoyable, but a real eye-opener into going into kids football.
Yeah, nice. I think what's interesting as well, where you mentioned there about your dad having such an impact, and I think this is something which definitely as coaches, there's a big sort of ethos within coaching where, they feel that all their ideas and all their suggestions and technical points are the things which the players are remembering. But I mean, depending on obviously how long they spend with them each week, I mean, for some teams and some training sessions, it's only about an hour a week, let alone obviously on match days. But I think, like you said, you're going to be around your dad so often, and it's going to be that major impact of, like you said, even just those practicing your kick-ups, practicing headers, those key things are so underestimated. And also social peers as well. I mean, probably during school, you're playing with people. Then, like you said, on the weekend, you're playing with your team, and you've got friends that you're enjoying playing with. So you're probably learning things off of them as well. So it's interesting to hear that.
And that's, nowadays, whether it's through the kids' sports and things like that, that's what's lost. I used to go around the corner, around the penthouse and take a football with me, and I'll be kicking the ball up against a wall, and the people would be coming out saying, "Will you bugger off for kicking the ball against me wall," and things like that. And that I don't see that much nowadays, and which is a bit of a shame. But the world has changed, and we live in a different environment. But like you say, going out in the garden and having that mentality, wanting to go out there, and that focus to go out there to practice, and that is sometimes people take that for granted. Just going out there for an hour a night, that's an hour more than you're getting anywhere else. An hour that you're not on a computer, the practice that you get and the touches. My old man used to make me, tell me, whatever people want to call it, to have a football at my feet in the house.
Yep.
So I'd sit down watching TV, I'd still have the football, and as I get up to say go and get a drink, but the football would be there, it'd still be at my feet. My old dear would be moaning because I'd be coming back with a cup of tea or a drink while concentrating on football. Yeah, trying to not spill it. So these are real little points, finer points that the coaching you don't get that while coaching at a club and things like that. Them parts are developed and used and nurtured before you get there, and it goes a long way. So lots of little different points, but things that just stick with me and always stuck with me, really. So pretty mad.
Yeah, no, again, massive points there. Like you said, I mean, even like the thing you mentioned about going around the house and, you might be going to get a cup of water and you're kicking the ball around. I mean, it seems like when children, maybe like I said, maybe not as much now, but would kick a ball to school. Well, you're going to go on uneven pavements, so you're going to have to think about how you're going to control the ball. I mean, being safe, but you're going to come up against roads as well, so you're going to have to stop the ball. There's going to be pedestrians in the way. So I think this is a big thing. I think not all the time. I think coaching's obviously definitely got better as the years have gone on. But say, for example, a couple of years back, where coaching was perceived to be more of the command style base of players who come to a session, and similar to what you said, an experience, really, it'd be very much your decisions made for you before you've even got the ball. It's you've got to pass it. But whereas now, there's a lot more sessions orientated around the sort of decision making and problem solving of players, and those little things like you were saying you was doing there, that is problem solving, that is decision making. It's, how are you going to get to the kitchen without...
It's not kicking over that plant pot, that's right, and going in and around things and dribbling, and it's all there. It's all at your feet, all that you're doing at your house. So you might not be dribbling fast, but you're still dribbling. Yeah, I'm a terrible dribbler, but I still had to do it when I was younger. You still had to have that touch to do it. So no, it's like you say, the outside bit and not playing out on the streets and things like that. It does bring a different element in it, but obviously we are in a different world, and that's where I find it hard sometimes, because I'm saying to my own boy, go out and do it, and you forget. You absolutely do forget. I came up through doing it, and you do forget. So you have to, even me, I have to take a step back, come into today's world, and realise what we're dealing with now. And I think that is, I'll talk about on my UEFA bit in a minute. It's understanding from the other side. And trying to get from the kids' perspective, not just from yours, because you're trying to dictate. So, it's really funny. It makes him smile quite a lot.
I can imagine. It leads in quite nicely then to the next thing we're kind of looking to move on to. So, obviously, you said you joined your first initial team, and that was where you had your first coach. Obviously, potentially as well, dad and peers, but also when you actually had your first team coach. Speak us through kind of that journey of what it was like to be in a team, and like you said there, obviously with your UEFA B, what you're seeing is you have to see it from the other side as well, and especially when you're at that young age of your 6 and your 7s, you just want to play football. What was that kind of experience like in that first team, and then how did kind of the love for football and your ability and your talent grow on to take you into where you went in the game?
Yeah, obviously the love for the game was incredible. Obviously we used to play Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and then we'd go back to one of the boys' houses and play in the garden all afternoon, and then look to play again on the next day, then do the same in the afternoon, then go to school. Look, I'd hold my hands up. My schooling wasn't great. I wasn't most cleverest, and most of the time I'm going to school to play football at lunchtime or in the break. Yeah. I urge kids not to do that, but that's what does sometimes happen. But that was my pathway. Everything was about football. Anytime I could play football, I would do. Anytime a chance I could, I would. And nothing would really stop me, to be perfectly honest. And the social side of it was, like I said in my previous one, I've still got best mates now from 6 and 7. I was part of a team, and that team was newly formed, but we were sort of like known as sort of dancing juniors, and the more you went on, the more we played in that team. Myself, Chris Cerrone, Rob Smidmore, Mark Kerry, and that lads I still speak to now. We went on from there to Long Lane, which was another bigger team at the time. And, it was sort of getting known around there. And, we ended up in like magazines and things like that. I can't remember bloody magazine as it was now, but, you'd see yourself, you'd pick it up on a Sunday or Monday or whatever to try and see if your team and look at the table. It's all online and everything like that now. I get it. But, the social aspects of it and seeing other kids at your school and talking to them about your games and things like that. So, real enjoyable time you know, look, when you get to be a pro, it's not always enjoyable like that. There's a lot more that comes with it, and you deal with different things. There, it's just fresh, new, exciting, and you wake up every day, can't wait to play a game. So really good times, and ones you look back on really fondly. Yeah. It's like when people say your best days when you was at school, and you think, no, it ain't. Yeah. I don't want to go to school, but then you have to go to work. Yeah, you think, oh, yeah, I wish I did go. I'm going to school, so it's you know, it is absolutely the best times and the most enjoyable times. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, again, I think it makes perfect sense in the sense of, like you said, sometimes, especially taking from your first point as well, that, you know, some children need football as a release. And I think it's so often underestimated. And one of the things through my experiences of early coaching is, you know, the typical journey of an early coach is going into schools and taking potentially P lessons. And one of my hates was when you have the P lesson going on, and say, for example, if I'm doing football and it's, oh, so-and-so has to come out and read a book now. So-and-so has to come out and do a job for me. But, you know, these are the moments where, well, number one, not even talking just about the physical aspect of PE, but talking about, like you said, the enjoyment, the sociable elements of it. And it's lost because it's seen within school settings maybe as not as important, which is a shame. But yeah, I definitely agree that I think there is sometimes that you know, that outreach of players. And like you said, especially, well, 6, 7s, I say probably all the way up to about the age of 11 even. I think that age group is loving the game, and I think that's probably the majority of a coach's responsibilities. I mean, you know, you'll see some coaches coaching under 16 and wanting to play out from the back and you know, play some magnificent football, but purely and simply, all the way up to the age of 11, it's, can you get that child or those children to fall in love with the game? Enjoy it. Yeah, exactly. And it may just be, do you know what, they go on to enjoy it so that they just play socially and recreationally, or it may be like in your case where you was able to, you know, go on and make it within the game. When you was obviously at that team, like you said, you know, your team was kind of getting a bit of a name for themselves in terms of, well, good name, in terms of the ability that you was doing on the pitch and the things that you was achieving on the pitch. How did that kind of turn from just the sort of recognition of, you know, this team's doing well, and like you said, even when you went along to Long Lane as well, to you suddenly then becoming, you know, into youth academies and then leading your way up into the professional game?
Yeah, so pretty early on, I was in and around academies, professional teams. Obviously, I don't know if they still do it now, but back in the day when I was coming through, I lived down the road from Sparrows Lane, from Cholton. They used to do soccer schools. Now, 6 weeks holidays, I think they still go on. Yeah. You know, your mum drops you off there, you take your packed lunch, you go play football all day, and you have your lunch at lunchtime, and you get picked up at the end of the day. You do it for 2 weeks. Now, I did that from what I remember from the age of, I think it was 6 or something, you know, something really, really early. I don't know how we found out about it. I remember having the first real footballer I sort of met was Bob Boulder. We took penalties against him during training, and that was my first recollection of like sort of meeting someone, you know, a goalkeeper he was. And so that was my real introduction. At that time at 6, Charlton wanted to sign me after going to one of these soccer schools. As most, if you're not signed anywhere, if you know, if they see an eye for someone, they sort of try and take them on. Of course. The old man was like, no, 6 is way too early. That's not happening. Not doing it. 2 years later, I signed for West Ham in schoolboys. I don't know why he suddenly find it 2 years old. I was older or whatever, but that's just how things happen. So I was in and around it very early on, and it's still the going to that soccer school. It was still enjoyable. It still wasn't really fundamental. You know, we should do this. It was still enjoyable and still really good. I think, you know, up, like you say, up until the age of probably 11 is where you get the real enjoyment out of it, and then it sort of, the structure comes in. You know, the team games. You suddenly realise 3 points is very, very important. You know, and that side of it. So signed for West Ham at 8, and then went there twice a week and trained there. So and then developed from there really.
Nice. And obviously, like I said, I again think the soccer schools are, you know, a real big part of community football. Absolutely. Because, you know, from a child's point of view, it says it in its name, it's a soccer school. So instead of going to school, you're spending the same amount of hours there, but it's just purely football. And like you said, it's especially in those soccer schools where, you know, so listen, some people may even classify it as not babysitting, but, you know, just facilitating children whilst they're playing football. But, you know, from a child's point of view, if you get to play football all the time, perfect. You know, some of it's going to be structured in the sense of it may be a session. Some of it may be free play, so just matches, and some of it's fun games. So I think that, it's definitely a major part of a lot of community programs to have things like that in place.
It's moulding that. You make that one diamond in the rough, you know, that 1-2 players, you know, you might, at that early age, it's glorified babysitting, as people might call it, but it's one, getting the kids out of the house. Two, you're going into a training ground, which for Sparrows Lane for me, my old man used to run the Junior Robins team there. So I used to go up there on a Friday night and train with them on a Friday night. So I knew Sparrows Lane. But to go there during the day, you'd see the pros coming in the cars. You know, you felt like a footballer. You were going there in a day, and you were there the whole day, and you wore the kit, and it's something enjoyable, and it's something that whatever team I've been at, I've sort of looked over to ever, you know, if there's kids over there playing or what are they doing and things like that. So it sticks with you, which I'm sure it would do with a lot of people that have come through the system and have taken part in that early on.
Yeah, no, totally. And again, I think even like you said, I know, for example, for Charlton's one especially, I know that, they do it down at Sparrows Lane. I mean, some community programs don't always do it based at the training. But I think from an inspirational point of view, definitely. Imagine being a young player and seeing that. And I think this is one of the interesting points you made as well about, you know, your dad turning around and saying, look, no, 6 years old is too young. The thing is, especially when I talk to a lot of coaches and I talk to a lot of parents, the first thing that parents want to do straight away is often, I want to get my boy or my girl into football. Can I get them into a team? Now, the first thing is, it's like the saying, you know, you can't run before you can walk. Like we're saying about these soccer schools, about just playing with your friends, playing, like you said, in the garden or on the street, wherever it may be. There are where you're going to learn your sort of fundamental movements of football and just having it on the feet. And then, exactly, the raw bits of football. And then it's, do you know what? I'm then going to put all that learning, all those experiences into a team. Because I know there's been certain players which I've come across and brilliantly technically gifted, socially terrible.
Yeah, you haven't got that streetwise type of, you know, that sort of bit of grit, streetwise part of it. And like I said, that's maybe lost and things like that. And it don't necessarily come from being out in the street and kicking the ball around, but you know, the other side of it, definitely does help, I think. And, you know, like you say, it's a big part of a kid's learning, you know, kids growing up. And, obviously I was lucky enough to be able to do that.
Of course. And so, obviously, when you've moved sort of into the West Ham, I call it the setup, but like you said, sort of the schoolboys and then obviously the academy, the kind of setup of it, how did it kind of change from, because I suppose even... this is the problem at this kind of age group as well. I mean, we're saying that should be the fun core elements. And don't get me wrong, within academies, there still is that fun core elements which are being set. But there is a bit more of an element of, right, Liam Ridgewell's coming into our club age 8, and we want him to look like the West Ham player. And this is what the West Ham player looks like at first team. So there is almost a bit of a mould going on already through the session structures and through the different, I suppose, you know, more experienced coaches with potentially different badges.
As soon as you're signed, most coaches or academy people or fellas, they go, you play like him, or, you know, we see you like him, or you see that pathway. So already that seed's in there. You know, you play like Frank Lampard, you play like Joe Cole, you play like Richard Garcia. So the seed's there. So what do? You go and look at that player. You know, you go and home in on that player and go, right, okay, bosh. That's what I'm going to be. Is that right? Maybe not. Maybe. You know, my boy went through. You know, he's 14 now, and he went through a little bit of the system. And he played left back, right back, centre half, midfield. Did I like it? Not really. I wanted him to sort of have a position and sort of home in on it. You know, and obviously modern day people would go, no, they need to know everything. They need to do this and do that and do that. And I get that side. I understand that. But where do you really nurture and where do you really home in on and go, right, okay, I'm this type of player, not that position necessarily, but I'm this type of player.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes in at. But that's where, like you say, when I first joined West Ham, I was a central midfielder. I'd gone playing from centre forward at Sunday League team. Wasn't quick enough, so you moved back. Comes to central midfield. I was a box-to-box midfielder, tackle anything, and I'll score a few goals. Sort of try and run everything basically. Went into West Ham and did the same there really. But as I don't remember which player or sort of the players that obviously were spoke about with Frank Lampard, Richard Garcia, them types of players. But as I sort of hit puberty, that's where I sort of got moved back. You get moved out, you don't want to be hustle and bustle. So that's the academy set up, and that's where being in the academy at that age, they notice things like that, and that's where it helps. So you don't necessarily need to be in the academy. It's best, like you say, to be enjoying your football, then you get into it. But the problem for parents and a lot of people nowadays is, well, that kid's isn't in an academy. Yeah. Is he getting left behind?
Yeah.
Is he? Maybe, maybe not. That's where it is very difficult. And I think that's where my old man sort of got to at 6. No, it's too early. Let him just enjoy it. Now, 8, everybody else is at a team. He's at Arsenal. Yeah. He's at Chelsea. He's at West Ham. He's at West Ham. A couple of my other friends were at West Ham. So it was like, right, okay, well, we can car share. We'll all go together to West Ham, and they've got a good youth system. So it sort of fitted in. And, obviously it worked out well.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting because, you'll see a lot of parents don't get me wrong, sometimes there is, like you just mentioned there, the sort of, what's the word, sort of accessibility in terms of, like you said, there's a few people who potentially may be at the same club already. So do you know what? It makes sense because we're comfortable and familiar with those settings. For some people, it may be the type of coach that's down there. So it may be, do you know what? If I send my son or my daughter to this coach or to this team with this coach, they're going to learn some incredible things and be
a lot more.
And they're going to be given a great experience. But then sometimes it's simply, and believe me, I think this is a bad way of looking at it. However, it allows sometimes the top ups to be able to benefit from this. The badge,
I'll just about to say that.
See the badge.
Absolutely.
And
if the old man or family are Arsenal fans, I had it. Lads that played, they went to Arsenal. Or Arsenal, of course, they're going to go to Arsenal. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why necessarily go to Arsenal? When I was coming through, even at an early age, I was looking at the first team, thinking, okay, so how many are they bringing through? And nowadays, that's where things come in. But like you say, sometimes it's the badge and they support them, and the kids walking around in an Arsenal or Chelsea or Man United tracksuit, then great. It might just be Leyton Orient.
Yeah.
It might be a Leyton Orient or a smaller team, but it just might not be the right fit.
Yeah.
Just because the support them might just not be the right fit.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And so obviously you're in this West Ham setup now, and you're thinking about sort of like the long-term career within football. And I suppose, like you said, especially when you get to that stage, and even I think like you were talking about before, is it the benefit of having them in at a young age? Is it the benefit of them maybe going in later? I still do think there is, don't get me wrong, I'm a very big advocate of, don't jump straight into academy football. However, say for example, after a couple of years of you being there, you've had a couple of years more experience of being in an academy environment than somebody who's just coming in at that age. So, you may both be technically the same, but you have the psychological experience, the social experiences of these things, and that potentially may be enough to push you on and obviously make it as a career. First couple of sort of clubs that you was at, so obviously you was at Aston Villa, is that correct? Your first team?
So, West Ham, Aston Villa,
Yeah, and with Aston Villa, am I correct in thinking as well, you went out on loan?
That's right, to Bournemouth. Yeah.
And how did you find that experience? Obviously, being at Aston Villa, obviously, first team, professional football now, but then kind of like you was talking about those different experiences of being at different teams. How does you find it being sort of going into Aston Villa and being an Aston Villa player, and then having to become a Bournemouth player and play in their way of styles, or facilitate to their coach and what they want?
Yeah, well, obviously Bournemouth were sort of the team to go on loan to at the time, and it's even better team to go on loan to now. But obviously at that time they were sort of the ball playing team, and the likes of Jermaine Defoe had been there. and a couple before me. So when my agent sort of was with the talking to Villa and stuff like that, they were sending boys to Bournemouth. It was like, right, it'd be a great place for Ridge to go and learn and go down to Bournemouth and go that way. So when that did materialise, obviously I've been in the first team for a little while, and when that came up, it was like, let's go, wicked. Obviously, as soon as I could get a league debut under my belt, I was just looking, I thought I was ready at 18. I thought I was ready to go. I thought 17. I thought, yeah, I'll play. I'm knocking on people's doors and saying, I'm ready to play. Let's go. But went to Bournemouth for a month, sent out there by late Graham Taylor, God rest his soul, and loved it. But it was a rude awakening. They trained on a pitch next to the stadium, which the stadium never had that one end as it was now. So that was something new. There was no sort of training ground. And then we didn't eat there because there was nowhere to eat. We went then to a fitness place to go and have our lunch. Now, that was new for me. I'd come up through West Ham, then to Villa. And I was used to just leaving the training field, go to the change room, get showered, and then go to next door to get some food. Given it was beans on toast, but at Bournemouth we had to drive somewhere else and go get food. So it was a great awakening and such a great way to start my career off at such a sort of a wicked, great club to nurture players as they have, and Rio, Defoe, I think even Lampard, Frank went there for a bit, and it was great to be there and live with some great people in digs and things like that looked after me, and really enjoyed it and came back and then sort of started on my career at Villa, really.
Nice. And one of the things I've always thought as well is that how important this, and don't get me wrong, I know some players have careers at one club and they may be there for their whole career, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
However, talking about even from the early stage of football, about playing school football, playing in a club, playing on the street, playing in your garden, all of those are different experiences, and all those different experiences will lead to better decisions to be able to be made when you're actually playing. And I think that it's the same with going out on loan. I think, Chelsea get criticised for it quite a bit with the amount of players they put out on loan. However, some of those players, and if the players are looking at it from a selfish perspective, it's great for them to go out on loan because, at one point you're going to be at a club where potentially you're, top of the league or middle of the league and might be in the Premier League, might be in the Championship. And he's getting sent out on loan to different clubs who are in totally different situations. Like you said about the, you're not even getting your food catered for you where you are. You're having to go somewhere else. And, these are all great character building skills, I think, which, is a big part of being within football. And I was going to say, I think that talent is one thing, but motivation and opportunity are other things within football, which are crucial.
Absolutely massive. I think, I've come across players 10 times more talented than myself, 10 times more talented than other players that I'd seen make it. But just on that, let alone, it doesn't happen. It does sometimes happen, but you need a lot more to yourself. You need grit, determination, bounce back ability, and moving from South London up to Aston Villa. I grew up as a man very, very quickly. I moved at 15. I moved away from mum and dad, and you've got to get used to not having your mum and dad there, not having to be able to turn around to ask them things. You've got to suddenly think on your own for 2 feet. You've got managers that are men, talking to you as 15, 16-year-olds. You've got to soon grow up and soon realise you're in a game now. You're in a job that people can earn a lot of money from, and you can get paid for something that you love doing. And if you don't do it and don't do it properly, the kid next to you will. And things like that. So going out on loan, I grew up again. I thought I was a man when I went to Villa, when I was playing there. But even when I went to Bournemouth, I come up against, the likes of Steve Fletcher, the big fella for Bournemouth, and got in training. I went, oh my God, like, what do I do here? It was like, Christ. And that's when you learn. Actually, I thought I could win every ball when I was playing reserve team football and youth team football. I got to that and played against him, and I suddenly quickly had to realise you're not going to win every ball. Yeah. You might win one or two that you can win, but actually it's better off to leave him with it, play back the way, and he's fine. So you grow up again, and that's the good thing about going out on loan. Chelsea get criticised about it because You know, I think they probably buy a lot in and then loan out, and they sort of take them away from their teams to buy them in and then go out again. But they're still getting bought into Chelsea. Yeah. They're learning that way of life, and if it works out, fantastic. But at least they put them out on loan.
Yeah.
And at least they're going from Chelsea on loan to someone. You know, that's a higher path. So it suddenly makes you a man. It makes you grow up. And like you say, all these walks of life and what you do and changing does help you. Yeah. Would I stay at Aston Villa for my career? Absolutely, I would have done, because they brought me through and I loved it there. But how many times does that really happen? And how many managers do you like? How many people do you get on with? How many players? You know, all this comes into it, and you need your path. And if your path is to play as many games in the Premier League as possible, or Championship, League One, League Two, as many appearances as you can get under your belt, then you make sure that no one else matters, and you drive for that.
Yeah, no, totally. And again, like you said, you know, I think the loans are important, and it shows you that different experience. And I think from a coach's perspective, even more so, looking at it from the outside, is that you're getting the opportunity to work under different managers, different coaches who have different coaching styles, who have different ways of playing the game. And obviously within those different teams as well, you're going to, like I said, you're going to come against different scenarios. I mean, depending on, like I said, whether you're fighting for relegation, you're fighting for promotion, you're fighting just to stay in the league or stay in the middle of the league. And, you know, as a player, you're having to react to that.
It comes down to, once you then step in with, you know, I thought playing with the big boys was playing in reserves and training with the first team. When you go out on loan, you go to Bournemouth and they're in League Two, and these boys are earning money that's paying mortgages, which we all do. I'm not saying that, but this is winning on a Saturday. You suddenly realise winning on a Saturday is even more important. Yeah, it meant a lot to us to win on a Saturday, but when you go on loan, and when you're with the big boys, it's even more important. These are putting food on the kids' tables. You're playing for something, and you're playing for the club and the fans. Yeah. So that's when you suddenly realise, oh, I'm in it now. You know, this is where you realise, do you really want to be a footballer? Do you fancy it? And you'll see some people, they'll craft and go, you know what? Yeah, that loan degree didn't work out for me, or this and that, or whatever. Did you make it work for yourself? And that's where you suddenly sort of see a different like world and different life. And I was lucky, like I said, to go to Bournemouth, and such a great club, but they wasn't doing particularly well. It was still a struggle, but the ethics of the club was very good, you know, in the style that they played, and it fit me. So that's what made it enjoyable.
No, nice. And before we kind of touch on the Portland Timbers experience and your time over there, looking at kind of just, you know, different clubs you've been at within England, such as the Aston Villas, the Bournemouths, the Birminghams. Obviously, you would have played under quite a few different managers. And again, this is the thing that always kind of sticks out for me, is that, like, a manager, say, for example, might bring you in based on you as an individual, like the way you play and you fit their style and they like you as a character. But as we know within football, obviously at times, you know, managers get the sack. And as you kind of alluded to, it may just be a thing of, do you know what, you don't necessarily like the manager because of their, like I said, it might not be their personality, but again, their coaching style. So kind of looking at your whole experience within England specifically, what were some of the sort of coaching styles that you came up against? And as a player, so for example, what kind of brought out the best Liam Ridgewell? How would a manager or a coach have to, you know, react to you and deal with you and bring it out?
I think, you know, I've like I say, I've had a wide span of managers. You know, a David O'Leary who didn't coach, he was a manager. Yeah, he was a man's man manager. He had Roy Akin, who was an unbelievable coach, which I had later on at Birmingham City when we won the Carling Cup. But David O'Leary was just a man's man. He'd come out at 10:20 while we're doing a warm up, or 10:30, and he'd come and just talk to the players. You know, like, what car are you in today, or what you're going to get, or what you're doing after, or where you've been the weekend, or what you've been eating. Just chatting to the lads. Yeah. Now, it made the lads feel like a bit special. You know, if he weren't talking to you, you'd be like, oh, why isn't he talking to me? So you weren't necessarily coached off him, but he'd be a talker. He'd be one of the lads. But then he'd step back and be the manager. So that was sort of a different stint. You know, Steve Bruce took me to Birmingham, a manager that didn't coach, but was let you know if he wasn't happy. Ranter and raver most of the time, and he soon let you know. And then obviously going on to Roy Hodgson, who was probably my favourite, and probably brought the best out of me. Someone that, from a coach's point of view and a manager's point of view, that I want to be. Someone that I'd mould myself on, and someone look to. Very regimented. Every player knew what they needed to do. Every player knew where they needed to go and what they had to do, and the attributes and things like that, and where they should pass and what would happen at certain times. I understand that for some wingers or number 10s, they might not like it because it's too structured and too regimented. But for me, it kept us in the Premier League. We were finishing 7th, 8th, 6th, and that was brilliant. We were winning on Saturdays and beating these big clubs, and that was brilliant. And I understood. I looked around the team and I thought, I know what he's going to do. I know what he's going to do. I know what he's going to do, and that worked so well for me. And that would be me. So a really wide range of managers, but sort of take a little bit from everybody, but mostly take a lot from Roy, to be perfectly honest. Nice.
And like you said, I think they always use the example of being a sponge and absorbing all the bits of information.
That's right.
And I think that is important because, again, like we said, you'll come up at times against managers who maybe potentially you may not like, or managers that may not necessarily suit you, the way that you want to play. And obviously, you're still clubbing, you still have a job to do. And like you said, you're not just doing it for the manager, but you're doing it for the teammates, the fans, the club as a whole. So it's finding those ways. I mean, it's like within any working environment, not everyone will like their boss, but they'll understand, what they need to do to work towards a goal together.
We had Pep Mel came in. Steve Clark got sacked. Pep Mel came in, and he came in with a completely different philosophy, and that's a philosophy to West Brom. We were a hard-working team. Get the ball inside, wide, overlapping crosses. Suddenly he came in and wanted to tippy-tap it from the edge of the box and sort of play out from right at the back. And you're thinking, I've been brought up, if the ball isn't anywhere near your goal, you ain't going to concede.
Yeah.
Now, that was different. And it was different for all of us, all the players.
Yeah.
So it was very, very hard. And looking at it from his point of view, it was hard to implement because you've got such a core group that knew how to win the Premier League, was winning the Premier League, and then suddenly it was changed and it wasn't working. So it was very difficult from his side. As a player, I never really looked at it that way. But from a manager's point of view and a coach's point of view now, absolutely. So that's where I think as a coach and as manager, when you first go in, that's where I think you need to adopt or take a look and realise what you're dealing with or what you can do instead of just going, right, this is what we're doing. And everyone goes, are we? No, we ain't. It's like, no, we are. No, we ain't. And when you get to a Saturday, who's deciding how you're playing? All the players are.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So that's the point of it. So it's, nowadays, obviously, everybody seems to try and play that way. But when he came in, it was very tough. And I think you need the players to play that way if you're going to play that way. But just didn't really suit me and a lot of players, really. And, he wasn't there too long, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, I think, again, because of the success which Pep has had with Man City and even previously at other clubs, everyone wants to play the Pep way. And, don't get me wrong, that's fine. Because, again, as a player, similar to what you were saying before about when you was at West Ham, you look to individuals who you want to replicate what they're doing. And it's exactly the same with managers and coaches. They'll look at things, oh, I like that. I'd love my team to play that way. But the problem is, and the key sort of factor which has come out through so many discussions with players is about the managers understanding, like you said, what they have in front of them and understanding the players as individuals. Like you said, if there's a philosophy already in place, but then they come in and try and create a whole new philosophy, well, number one, you probably haven't got the time to do that. Number two, if the players don't mould that philosophy, and sometimes I say that the theory of something broken, don't or something
don't fix it.
It's that kind of element. I mean, if you're, like you said, you're experienced in winning games, you understand how to play the West Brom way. Don't get me wrong, you can come in and you can develop players and coach players, but it doesn't need to be a revolutionary new.
No, of course, and obviously he had that philosophy first coming in. So not only the hierarchy that got him in there knew how he was going to play. So for them, they'd seen this sort of yeah, obviously Steve Clark got the sack, so he wasn't doing well at that time, but it'd been working. So they thought, right, let's go and change it completely. So it wasn't completely, well, we all blamed, Pep Mel for coming in and doing this, but really, it weren't even his fault at all. That was just his way of philosophy. Yeah. So that's why now I come out the game and I'm on the coaching and the managing side. Now I look at it and think, he got a rough ride. Everyone knew how he was going to come in because he would have said, right, I want to play out from the back. I want to play tippy-tappy football. I want to work the ball up and do this and try and score the best goal in the world. Where really, you're West Brom in the Premier League, which you want to stay there every single year. Yeah. How many times does that really work? Not a lot. So it's a tough one. So, like you say, if going in or even just coaches on the Sunday pitch, anyone that whoever you're coaching, recognise what you've got in front of you, recognise the player. Can you shout him? Maybe not, because you need to put an arm around him. Maybe not. Does he need to be shouted at? It's all them things where, I suppose that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, totally. And again, I think, especially with sort of when you go through coaching qualifications as well, and you learn about the sort of technical, psychological, physical and social corners and how important they are. I mean, from an outside perspective, people look at football and think technical. Yeah. And it is. But even like you use the example of the David O'Leary where, from some people's point of view, they'll go, what is he doing? Like, what is he, is there any point of even being at training? But in his mind, it may have been, like you said, that thing which even got yourself thinking, well, if he doesn't talk to me, have I done something wrong? And it's that constant psychological thing of keeping players on their toes, keep putting them in a comfortable environment as well. Of, do you know what? Yeah. When we're on a training, sometimes we can just talk as pals.
We had a lot of young team at that point. Late great J. Lloyd Samuel, Lee Hendry, Gareth Barry, Peter Crouch. These are all boys. These are all friends. So if he'd come in and tried to, talk about like old stuff, it'd have been cast off. So what does he do? He comes in and talks about, cars or a house or a holiday. And at the time, and probably even for me and you talking, didn't really look at it that way. But actually, his method in his madness was to get to the level to try and get the best out of them and try and go that way. So, the four corners, until I got on my level 2 in UEFA B, never took a diddly squat about it. Played the game, went in, trained, come home. But now, like you say, you have to look at all them things. A kid turned up late. Like even I've done it. A kid turned up late, I'd be like, God, why are you not on time? Yeah. How are you not on time? But there might be bigger things. He might be getting himself to training.
Yeah.
I know I have that mum and dad to get. He might be getting a bus, a train, and things like that. So they're things that I've sort of had to put my head round and look the other side, and you suddenly realise it just ain't all about that one thing. There's more to it sometimes.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's like, again, you use the example there of, player turn up late, and it's true. Your first instinct as a coach, or even just as an individual,
I'd tell them to go home.
Yeah.
That's my first thing. I would have gone, turn round.
Yeah, but like you said, it may have been, they have to take their self to football, and that's why I always kind of again go back to that talent, motivation, opportunity, because believe me, there's some players out there who do not have the talent but have the opportunity by always getting taken to football. Will be driven to Newcastle if needs be every weekend. And but then there's some players who don't have that opportunity, but potentially might have the motivation, which helps to push them towards that. So
of course.
It's interesting. Again, you kind of spoke there about obviously when you was at Birmingham, you was a young squad and younger players around you. Then towards sort of the end of your career, you kind of went on towards Portland Timbers, and again, I think it's another great experience, depending on what stage of the journey it's at, because it's playing internationally, and you're all of a sudden again putting yourself in a different comfort zone. What was that like in terms of the transition from England to America, but also the sort of roles and responsibilities that you had within that team, from coming from playing in the Premier League, coming potentially as maybe a more senior player than some of the other players out there, and having all that experience that you're carrying with you?
One of the, I think probably, if not one of them, the best periods in my career, most enjoyable, but best periods in my career. Obviously, going there, I was 29. Even when I was at West Brom, I was sort of an older pro, but I wasn't the older pro that was sort of asked to do certain things. I've always talked and always been an organizer, or captained a team. But going to Portland, I was this, you know, coming from the Premier League. So I'd sat down with the manager, the owner, and the GM to talk about how we'll play and how we'll do certain things and what food we'll have and things like that. And I've spoke about it briefly before, and I felt like a superstar. I felt like, you know, David Beckham and Wayne Rooney, these people at Man United, and Roy Keane at Man United, you know, just started doing these things. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. I lapped it all up, and, you know, got to, you know, talk on the training pitch with me and the gaffer, Caleb. You know, we talked how we play and how people were positioned and what we did. And he allowed me to sort of organise from the back and organise people. And he gave me that responsibility. He said, you can be the sort of the gaffer on the pitch for me. I'm the gaffer off the pitch, but while you're playing everything, you sort of do it that way. And, you know, I lapped it up. I absolutely loved it. And the transition was brilliant. Obviously, it was a million miles away from home. I left 2 young kids here because I'm not with their mum. And they were, you know, 12, probably 10 and 8 at the time. So that was probably the hardest thing, leaving the family and 2 kids. They come out at Easter and summer, so I didn't leave them completely. If anyone's getting caught, you just left up and left. But it was great. I absolutely loved it. And then I met my wife now. We've got a little one, and she was born there. So it's whole experience and the lifetimeness of the friends we met and the lifestyle was incredible. But, you know, on the pitch and off the pitch, the football side of it was brilliant. And we was able to achieve our goals by my goal of winning something there, making Portland Timbers a name. You know, I know there was a name before, but a bigger name, an actual someone who competed. And I was so happy that we as an organisation was able to do that.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think it's, you know, big credit to yourself and the experience and the knowledge that you brought out there, because I agree. I think, you know, of course, they've been going around for ages, but their name was blown up when you went out there, especially from the point of view of being within England as well. You know, the media followed that you went over there and saw what Portland Timbers became, and, you know, it is a great journey. And I think what's really interesting as well is at the start of this conversation, we were talking about, you know, how football should be enjoyable and should be fun. And even just through hearing you speaking of those experiences at Portland Timbers, like you said, you enjoy it and it was fun. And I think, you know, that's a credit to the journey that you've had, because often, unfortunately, when for some players, it becomes towards the end of their career and it's like hanging on almost, rather than
I had that at West Brom. You know, Pep Mel came in that last season. I didn't enjoy playing. You know, like I said before, I'm not afraid to say it. I didn't enjoy playing. I didn't even watch football on the TV. Like, my mates came over and I was watching cookery programs and garden programs. I was like, we're not watching football. I don't want to watch it. So I'd lost the love. I always loved it, but I say lost the love at that time. But Portland gave me that back. It wasn't West Brom's fault. It wasn't that. It was just that period of time. It was something within myself that had just sort of gone. You know, whether I need, like, I felt I needed a new challenge. I needed something to really get my teeth into, and Portland gave me that. And it, like you know, anyone listening can hear that. You know, it was exciting. It was fun. It was different. It was, you know, challenging. And we got achievements out of it. Not only did we win, but we won. Like I said, I'll put it on my Instagram post. Not only did we win a cup and we won as a team, but we won as an organisation because we developed the training grounds. You know, we never had a chef there before I went there. We brought in a chef. Now they've got 3 chefs. You know, the food up there, you know, all that within the organisation got better, and that side of it was a win as well. So I found that again when I went there, and ultimately that's what I want to be a manager. That came back around. I would have said at West Brom to come back into football. No. But it did, and that was a good thing about it.
Nice. Again, I think, you know, just listening to your whole journey, your whole story, obviously it's an incredible one. Some people may look at it from the outside and gone, well, you know, you've been at clubs within the Premier League and then you've gone to America, you know, it's fantastic. But they wouldn't have seen all the ups and downs. And like you said, even the bits of like I said, going to Bournemouth, not having, like I said, just simple things like being able to access the food and stuff like that. And I think that, like I said before, those even though, again, we talk about coaching, the technical aspects, I think it is those psychological, social, physical bits. So in that aspect, it's being able to coach you as an individual, you as a character, and through those experiences, like you said, you was able to implement it at Portland.
Yeah, cool. I mean, obviously, Bournemouth had brought me in. I was a loney kid coming in at 18 years of age. Now they're fighting for games, winning games in League Two, and then they've got this loney kid from Aston Villa who's come down from the Premier League, who's got to play because he's on loan.
Yeah.
You're thinking, the other boys you're thinking, hang on a second, what, you're taking my mate out? They had injuries, but my mate's coming out. So the social aspect and organising of that and making sure it was incredible. And like I say, only things that I look back on, which obviously you look back on and realise. But yeah, it was a real growing up time and really thinking, right, okay, do you really want it, son?
Yeah. No, nice. Again, just highlights, the career that you've gone on to go and have, really. So looking at everything at kind of the whole then, I'm going to ask you a very generic question kind of first of all, but then put a little bit of a spin on it. And you kind of alluded to it during this anyway, but what would your advice be to sort of young players? And then the second part of that would be, what would your advice be to coaches? So something to be aware of from a player's point of view, whether that be at, a grassroots team, academy, or potentially even first team.
Yeah, my advice to young players and young players is to never really. It's never give up. You're always going to have setbacks. You're never not going to go through your career without setbacks. Whether that's being let go, whether that's having an injury, whether that's scoring an own goal or missing a goal. There's always setbacks within your career or your pathway to football that you'll have. So don't let them drown on you. Yeah. Just get past them. There's always another game. There's always another training session, and always keep working hard. On top of that, focus. If you really want to be a footballer, make sure that you give yourself a chance to be a footballer. A lot of kids say, I want to be a footballer. Do you really? Yeah. Are you doing everything that you really should be doing to be a footballer? Have you got a game tomorrow? Are you going out on the Friday night? Are you going around to your mate's house to play on the computer? Oh, it's only for 2 hours. Okay. Is the other player in your team doing that? So focus. You may not get this chance ever again. So focus on what you're doing. And as a man, coaches wise, I think I alluded to a little bit, and I think the one thing I take from it is every player may not implement what you want to do. Yeah. So you really need to look upon it, and something I've really taken forward. You may need to spend a little bit more time with that person to try and mould them, guide them, convince them to your way of thinking. Or you may need to take a step back and think, okay, wait, I won't do that yet. I'll do it in a few months or a month's time. Or, certainly grassroots and academy, you get a little bit more time, so you have a little bit more of a chance. But sort of, you might not be able to bash it all on them at once and go, right, let's change all this, let's do all this. You may need to step back a bit. So realise what you've got in front of you. I mean, I've got my coaching manual book right here. I've got a thing on Thursday, and I've got that down on my thing to realise what you've got in front of you, and really read the room, read the players, what you've got.
Nice, fantastic advice. I think from the players' perspective, and those players who'll be watching and listening to this, agree. I think focusing on what you need to be doing, and putting the time into what you're doing as well, and then time also for, like you said, coaches as well. But more so the time of understanding and getting to know players, and really, especially like you said within coaching as well, when to implement these key things. Again, whether it be a technical thing, whether it be just a conversation or a question that you're probing a player with. So I think fantastic advice, and also great insight into, like I said, your journey in your career. So I mean, Liam, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but fantastic insight into, like I said, your journey. Great discussion. I think this has come out of this, and especially for the people watching and listening this, like I said, I think they'll take a lot away from it. So all I can do is thank you for taking part. I hope you enjoyed it.
My pleasure. No, really good. My pleasure.
No problem at all. And I'll catch up with you soon. All right, Liam?
Thank you. Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.